Hey y'all, what's up? It's Regine. Welcome to episode 2 of Art, Mind, and Soul. I have my special guest Sherród here. Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey y'all, hey, my name is Sherród. I am 32 years old and I live in Apex, North Carolina right now.
Okay, well, can you tell us when did you first fall in love with art?
Oh, I've really been creating since really I was a kid. I started with those cheapo art kits that we used to get as kids. They had like the little markers and the color
Hmm.
pencils and the cheap paper and all that. And I used to get them like clockwork for Christmas every single year. So I started using them all the time. I would burn through those things, and it really just took off from there. Once I discovered computers around the fourth grade, that was it from there.
Okay, well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like some background?
Yeah. Let's see. I've had a life full of art, I should say. Everything I've ever done has been rooted in creating something. So, like I said, I started when I was very, very young with crappy art supplies, and then I discovered computers, and then I discovered the intersection of computers and art in visual design, graphic design. And then when I got to high school, I got into cooking very, very heavily. And around the last year of high school, I learned how to integrate all these seemingly separate interests into a cohesive product. So, like for instance, we had end of the year projects, and I'd have a menu, and there would be a food component, and I would have a projection like with a presentation, all sorts of stuff. And then I went to college at the College of William and Mary, and I started out in computer science, and very quickly learned that was not for me. And I transitioned, didn't work out. But I transitioned into studio arts, and I got to explore all different forms of art from the classics like charcoal and paint, gouache, oil, and I
Mm-hmm.
got into printmaking, intaglio, big time. And then somewhere around the second year, my sophomore year, it wasn't what I wanted anymore. Tim Gunn, from Project Runway, came to speak, and he talked about making a change, and that speech inspired me to really focus on art. William Mary's it's a stellar school, but it's a liberal arts school. It's not an art school. So I decided to apply to Parsons School of Design in New York City. They let me in by the skin of my teeth, honey. And I moved to New York when I was 18. When I was
Wow.
18, and I pursued a bachelor's of fine art in photography. And unfortunately, that wasn't to be either. But I stayed in New York, and that path led me to various creative ventures. I own a software design and development company when I was about 20, I would say. And then I left New York and moved here to North Carolina. I'm a software designer by day, so I deal with the user's experience, which is its own form of art.
Mm.
How you experience these devices, how you work with them, is what I deal with. But I've since learned many, many, many other skills, from videography to cooking to, gosh, product design, marketing, ceramics. The list goes on and on and on. So it's been 32 years of art, really.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you've had your hand in pretty much everything,
I've done a
basically.
lot. I've dabbled. If you name a medium, I've probably tried it.
Okay. And so do you have a favorite medium, would you say?
Ooh, it's hard to pick, but if I had to, right now, my favorite medium is pottery. Ceramics is really what I'm focused on right now. But close number two would be cooking, and really tied with number two would be visual design.
Okay. Okay. And so speaking, I guess, of like right now with the ceramics, but also like in the past, like why do you create?
For me, it's not really a choice, to be honest with you. It's like breathing for me. It's just
Mm.
a thing that I do. I've always done it. It's not even really conscious for me. It's just how I live. I can't imagine not making something in some kind of way.
Mm.
The idea is totally foreign to me.
And it's always been like that for you, just like feeling
Oh
like,
yeah. I mean, I can remember being a really young kid at our grandparents' house, and I'm cutting up boxes and drawing scenes and dioramas on them. I remember in high school, going into cooking competitions. I remember in college when I had $10 to my name, I go into the art supply store to figure out what I could, mop from the store and
Hmm.
take home to work on. It's just always been a constant in my life. Even when I was in not a low period, but like a sort of a valley in my life, I was still creating to make money. That is what I do.
Okay. Wow. Oof, that's powerful. It's early and it's just so powerful. Okay. So what are like some of the best parts of your craft?
Mm. I really enjoy selling to people or giving things to people. I love, so Danielle and I, one of my business partner for one of my brands, Slice and Tort, we sold at the farmer's market, and that was one of my favorite things ever. I love that look on a person's face when they take your thing, when they taste your product, and their eyes light up, and they're like, "Oh my God, I have to have this." That feeling to me, there's nothing on this planet like it. Like serving other people, it's something I can't imagine not having in my life at this point.
Mm. What are the worst parts, would you say,
Ooh,
about your
child,
craft?
ugh. There's a lot of lows in ours as well.
Oh,
I mean, it's expensive. I will say it's a very expensive lifestyle. Um, as one progresses in life, I think you get a better job, you get a raise, get another job, you get a raise. So your trajectory usually goes up, but
mhm.
so then do your interests. They tend to follow that same sloping curve, and so every new medium that I try tends to be bigger, more expensive, more all-encompassing. And to that point, this is although my job is creating. I'm a designer in by trade. That's what I do. There are other aspects of art that I explore outside of my job, and it takes away from my job, and vice versa. My job takes away from the other aspects I want. So that balance I find extremely difficult to strike. I always have, and I think I always will, mainly because I like doing multiple things. So it's hard for me personally to settle on one thing and go at it 100%. I like to have my hands in different things, for better or for worse.
Okay. Okay. So how would you say that your ability to create affects your mental health or vice versa?
Well, like I said, it's natural for me to create, and so there have been times when I've not been able to. Depression hits, and I'm on the couch for 4, 5, 6, 7 days. I can't create anything. I start beating myself up about it. That
Mhm.
feeling of always creating, always doing, never leaves me, and so it's sort of a double-edged sword in that way. But on the flip side, the act of making something, especially now that I make things that people purchase and I get feedback on, there's a market for my things. That feeling to me, it's like a constant dopamine high. It feels so good to see what people are saying, to see people interacting with my things, to see people take my things into their home and give them a place of pride. It makes me feel like I have worth. It really makes me feel like I'm doing something on this planet, because that's my only and biggest fear in life, aside from flying on an airplane. But dying without fulfilling a purpose, not having
Mm,
stood into what I was supposed to do in this very, very short lifetime is horrifying to me. And so being
mhm,
able to see that purpose reveal itself and the ways in which it reveals itself, there's just nothing like it. It feels so good.
mm. Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. Is there a certain age that you felt like you realized, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, or has it been kind of just like a journey of discovery for you?
It's definitely been a journey. Although I've always felt like I should be making things, I never realized like to what end. It always felt like it was for a job.
Mm,
I have a software design company, or I work in software design. It's always for someone else. And then I would say somewhere around the time I founded Slice and Tort back in 2015, 2014, it started to click that actually this can be it. You can do this, and it can open so many avenues for you. And it was really the combination of not just creating, but creating with a reason, with a purpose, with a larger goal in mind, combined with business. Just the general idea of entrepreneurship. and marketing, all those things that businesses need. They all sort of converge, and I saw, oh, okay, this is a lifestyle. This is a thing you can do. And then a few years later, I got divorced, and it was a second awakening. It told me that I needed to push harder, farther than I had before. It let me know that I had become still and stagnant. And it was such a big and important wake up call in my life. And at that point, I started doing things that I had never done before. I took a trip to Hawaii. I went to back and forth across the country, did all sorts of things, tried out new interests, met new people, things that I just never done in the years I had been married. And one of those things was a ceramics class. And that's when it was another, just like a light bulb clicking on, duh, this is what you should have been doing. I don't know why you took so long to do this, Sherród. What were you doing? You should have done this a while ago. And ever since then, it's been very, very obvious to me that this is correct.
Okay. And we'll definitely talk more about the ceramics a little bit later.
Oh, yes.
I'm excited to get to that. But tell us a little bit about what aspects of your personality show up in your work.
I have to tell you, the best and worst parts of me show up in my work, to be perfectly honest with you. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a perfectionist, honey. And I think for Black people especially, you kind of have to be, especially in a lot of these higher level fields. It pays to be, I should say. So I've ever since I was a kid, I've developed this real strong sense of perfectionism. And that shows up in good and bad ways. I'm very meticulous. Both pottery and cooking can demand that. Running a business requires you to be meticulous, and in many ways to pursue perfection. But it also shows up in getting mired in very small details, not being able to move forward, having way too much on my plate at any given time, not being able to focus on the job that pays me because I'm focused on so many other things. So, it's a little bit of both. But I think I finally figured out a balance for it. Only taken, a few decades.
Yeah, just a few decades. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good that you're finally finding that balance and just, out here just doing.
It's hard to do. It's so hard. Nobody tells you. We always talk about how there's no rule book for adulthood. There's no rule book for life. But there's no rule book for how you show up in the world and how you move through it. And I found that very difficult not difficult, but I found it very challenging as I've gotten older. It's required me to step up to meet that. And I think that's shown up in my artwork as well. I've gotten more polished, I've gotten more refined, I've acquired more skills, been able to give people a complete package. I've always prided myself on being able to deliver this polished experience. And that's really a conjunction of all of the skills that I've learned across my life converging into delivering this thing. And that's a huge aspect of my personality, because I like to think I'm a polished, put together person as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I definitely agree. Okay, so you talk about this package. How do you feel like being Black affects just the impact of your work?
Listen, I'm gonna speak it real plain for y'all. First and foremost, that old adage that our parents tried to drill into us, you gotta work twice as hard to get half as far, 150% true. The world does not see you as capable. And so I've had to push, I've had to prove myself over and over and over again, not just in, my job, but in the things that I create outside of that. I've had to demonstrate time and time again that I can do this, I am competent, I am just as capable as anybody else. The world does not just see us Black people as a blank slate. The world has a preconceived notion about us, especially in this country. And we have to work very, very hard to overcome that in everything we do. And so for me, it's been a matter of learning how to navigate spaces in which I'm unfamiliar. I've had to learn how to speak to people in ways that I was never taught. I've had to learn ways of working that I just never thought I would ever learn. And I think that's very important for Black people in creative spaces to learn that you have to be authentic to yourself, but you do need to understand that the world does not see you as you see yourself. You have to learn to make yourself seen, for lack of a better word. One of my big sort of brand tenets for my pottery business is working with other exclusively creators of color, and not just of color, but also marginalized creators. So trans creators, female creators, all just anything and everything that is marginalized and not the norm in this country is someone that I want to work with. And I think that stems from being a marginalized person myself. I don't want to see the same things that I'm used to seeing. I want to see something different in the world. My ceramics brand is called Deep Black. It's a luxe handmade ceramics brand that emphasizes affordability, but also style and purpose, intention and creativity. It is all of the things that I don't see in the business. I came to ceramics late in life, but I'm glad I did, because to me it is everything. The name Deep Black comes from this feeling that I get when I put my hands on clay and start working. I close my eyes, and what I see in my mind is just this depth, this unlimited darkness that is what I lean into when I create. And it's really been a wonderful driving force in my life, and an overpowering force, I should say. It's really taken over everything in the best possible way.
Okay, so walk us through the process of what a day looks like for you when you're working with your ceramics.
Unfortunately, ceramics has not changed much in 4,000 plus years. It is a very slow, very intentional process. It requires time. That's the main ingredient, in this whole thing. So I might have an idea today, but it comes out on the other end as a finished product a month later. That's just the nature of the business. There's no way around it. But for me, I have always been the kind of person who just wants to see beauty everywhere. I've sort of made that a central feature of my life. Everything that I own is beautiful, carefully selected and curated, because I think living in beauty is just such a pleasure. So, I take in inspiration from everything and I reinterpret it through my own lens. I am a staunch minimalist. My wardrobe is very, very minimal. I try to keep my possessions to the bare minimum. I really espouse the idea of it. So I might see something and transform it in my mind. And then I'll get to the wheel and start playing around in the clay, see what does and does not work. And then finally, I'll get something that's probably pretty close to what I want. I've had to learn how to let go, just, go with it. It's been very difficult, but that's a big deal in ceramics is letting go. And from there, it goes off to the kiln for its first firing. It's like baking it. It turns the clay into a ceramic, which is a material similar in structure to glass. So you go from dirt to glass. And then after that, I have to decide how I'm going to finish the piece, how I'm going to glaze it. And this is where my aesthetic really comes into play, not just in terms of color and form, but also pattern, texture, visual interest, treatment, all sorts of things really collide at this point. I get to really express my minimalism. A lot of potters like to go really crazy with like color and visual interest and pattern and stuff like that, but that's not me. And it took a while for me to get that. I tried to be like what I was seeing, and I had to step back into myself and say, okay, what is it that you do well? And so at this point, I might mix up a new glaze. I'll treat the piece however I need to, and then it goes back into the kiln for another firing. And each firing takes anywhere from 2 to 3 days. So all told, we're looking at like minimally a week. Like that's probably the 5 days, probably the fastest you can get something done. For me, it's usually around 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And then once it comes out, it comes out. And then I get to put a lot of my other skills into play. To shoot the piece how I want. I might record video for the piece. I've got to edit the video, edit the photos. It's got to go up on the website. I've got to write the copy for it. That's a whole other thing. I have to decide how it's going to be marketed. I have to write an email blast. I have to put it in different places. I have to write the Instagram posts, which have their own captions, their own style. We finally, another week after that, get to the selling part.
Yeah.
And that's its whole other thing. I have to interface with clients, be able to represent my brand. I just had a woman the other day. She bought hundreds of dollars worth of things, but only because I spent the time to walk through the brand with her and really
Mm-hmm.
sell the pieces to her. Talk about what would and would not work in her home. So there's
Wow.
so many skills that
So
goes
it really
into.
is like an exclusive field then. If you're like, I didn't know you were giving people, like private, talks about this would look good, this wouldn't look
Oh
good.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. If
wow.
you message me, I will sit with you and walk you through what does and does not work for your home. And we can even talk about a custom piece as well. I really want these pieces, even if you're just buying a $20 planner. I want you to feel like you're getting something that you're going to love and cherish and really belongs in your home. We have a disposable culture, and ceramics are not disposable. I mean, you can treat them that way if you want, but they last, for thousands and thousands of years. And so I want people to treat the things that I spend my life energy making as
Mm-hmm.
a treasure in their home.
Wow. It sounds like a lot of the different skills that you picked up from various art forms and creating different things tie into this really well. So it's like good that
Oh
you have
yeah,
all that background in those different areas.
this business is literally 32 years in the making. It
Mm,
requires every skill I've ever learned in my life to make this work, and that's no small feat because I can't imagine doing this a different way personally. I love the fact that it takes so many skills to put this together because I feel like it gives me this complete package that I want to present to the world because I think the world expects it out of people like us.
So, what advice do you have for anyone that's looking to pursue the same craft or any of the things that you've done over the years?
First and foremost, fail. You have to fail in
Mm,
order to get better. We have in America, unfortunately, especially with Black people, our parents are always pushing us to greatness. Do better than I did, have more than I have, go to school, do this, do that. But what they don't tell you is, in fact, you have to fail at things. I dropped out of college twice.
mm,
I closed a business that I had for years and years, to get a regular job. You have to be willing to fail. It sucks, it's uncomfortable. Nobody really likes it, to say that they're a failure, but that's the only way
mm.
you grow. It's the only way you actually ascend through life is to fail, first and foremost. The second piece of advice I would give is to try anything and everything. Do it all. If the idea comes into your head, do it. You will learn so much about yourself when you just give yourself the permission to try stuff. I've never seen myself in any of the spaces I've ever occupied. I just have never been around Black people like that. It's just never happened like that. But you have to make yourself try. That's the only way you're going to grow and become your biggest and fullest self in this life.
How do you come back from that feeling of like there's no representation in these different spaces? Like, how do you mentally get yourself through that?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to what I said about sort of learning how to be in those spaces, learning to talk to different kinds of people and work with different kinds of people, learn other processes. It's just a thing you got to get comfortable with. Our culture is the culture. What we do is everything. It is valid, it is the underpinning of this country, and we can't be afraid to bring that into different spaces and show up and tell them this is who I am and this is what I do and how I am. Take it or leave it.
A lot of us have, had to take better care of ourselves and just kind of keep a clear head and. So what are you doing to kind of stay up and stay positive?
Well, I try to practice yoga as often as I can, every day around 4 o'clock. It's taught me quite a lot about myself, and it is that thing throughout the day that marks a transition from working during the day to having the rest of the day to myself. It helps me
Mhm.
feel more grounded in myself, like I'm not just sort of, in the same place all day long, because I am.
Mhm.
That helps quite a lot. But also making things, having things to keep my mind going. I am, for better or for worse, a person who's always thinking, always doing. It's been an issue in relationships that I don't know how to stop. But in this particular time in the world, I think it actually is kind of helping. I'm able to, for lack of a better word, distract myself with a lot
Mhm.
of other things going on, so I don't focus on what's going on outside the door. I can focus on what's going on in this home, in my mind, and sit with that. That helps me a lot. And of course, creating is just it. It's what makes me feel good So I really doubled down on it since we've been locked inside. I was able to negotiate getting a wheel from the studio, and I moved a lot of my pottery equipment into my own home. There's clay on every surface of this house. My balcony is a complete and total wreck,
Hmm.
but I am now able to create from the comfort of my home and not have to go anywhere. So that
Yeah.
for me is a form of self-care.
Okay. Good. Good. Well, thank you again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Tell us how to find you, where to go, social media,
Yes.
internet.
For my pottery business, Deep Black, you can go to my website, www.deepblack.design. That is a real website. Or on Instagram, deepblack.design. And if you are more interested in the food side of things, my food business is called Slice and Tort, Torte. So the website sliceandtort.com, or Instagram Slice and Tort. You'll find lots and lots and lots of stuff to get into. And please buy something. I need the money.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, again, thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This was fun.